Hello guys, and welcome to the video lesson number 1 of our week number 7. To start, I want to remind you that this coming week, meaning the week number 8, we are going to have this first midterm evaluation for our class. So it's very important, guys, that you revise your notes, that you revise all the concepts that we have been managing so far, that you revise sort of the, let's say, most important components of the class, because for sure they are going to be over there, okay? Also, I recommend that you advance at least until half of your book. You are going to require that for sure, the book that you're reading. So it's really important that you advance on this, because for sure a part of the evaluation will be based on your book, and if you haven't read that, it's very likely that you won't have like very good result in there, right? So it's very important, guys. Okay, now we are going to have a meeting, a synchronic meeting this week number 7. So I will talk to the monitor, and hopefully we will be meeting on Wednesday, I guess. I will let her know in advance, so you guys can prepare. It will be, of course, on the schedule of the class, and that will be it. Okay, so the idea of this synchronic meeting is that we were able to talk about certain details, such as the times, such as the dynamics of the evaluation, how is it going to be, when I'm going to post it, when I'm going to receive it, deadlines and everything else. Okay, so if you have any questions, suggestion, or something similar, make sure that you have that prepared, or that you have that in the in the meeting that we're going to have. You let us know. Okay. Well, that's it. So as usual, I would like to start the class by sharing with you a short poem. This one is a poem by Homero Eritis. It's a Latin American poet, and it is called Tercer Poema de Ausencia. Tú has escondido la luz en alguna parte y me niegas el retorno. Sé que esta autoridad no es cierta, porque antes de mis manos volaban las luciérnagas, y yo te buscaba, y tú eras tú, y éramos unos ojos en el mismo lecho, y nadie de nosotros pensaba en el eclipse. Pero nos hicimos fríos y conocidos, y la noche se hizo inaccesible para bajarla juntos. Tú has escondido la luz en otros ojos, porque desde que ya no existes, nada de lo que está junto a mí amanece. Well, it's a really nice poem that I like a lot. By the way, I just made a mistake reading it. I have realized instead of autoridad, it was supposed to be oscuridad. Yeah, that was it. I was a little bit excited reading it. Okay, so well, hopefully you grasp some of the meaning of it, and it's this guy who is lamenting himself, like having some sort of nostalgia, because he used to have a really nice relationship with somebody who was like the light for him, right? But then inertia, nostalgia, routine came in, and then the relationship was not the same anymore, right? There is like some sort of suggestion that maybe now the girl is with somebody else. That is why the light is not. I mean, she has hidden that in some other eyes. Well, it's sort of sad, but I think that in a very short span of words, of verses, the author is able to transmit a really specific sensation and emotion. Okay, well, very well. So, guys, this week's video is going to be quite short as well, and you will notice that specifically after the exam, the test, we're going to have shorter and shorter videos, at least for this subject, and the assignments will be a little bit long, right? Why is that? Because let's say that most of the theory has already been covered in terms of at least preparation. We're going to have, of course, some other things for application. That is, of course, one of the most important parts. But that is relatively short, right? Because let's say that we have just ideas of how to implement or use those texts that we have so carefully chosen, so carefully analyzed, so carefully prepared editions and guides and glossaries and all this, right? So let's say that the part that is coming is a little bit shorter in terms of explanation, but it will be, of course, longer in terms of application, right? So take that into account. Take that into account because that will demand, let's say, a longer or a wider independent work on your side. Okay. So remember that last week we covered or we talked about two different texts. The first one was The Oval Portrait by Edgar Allan Poe, and the other one was The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. Okay, so remember that I told you to very carefully analyze them, and well, we had a homework on the week number 6, and the idea was like to completely understand them. So hopefully by this time you're already done with that. It is already understood somehow. Of course, I am creating this video in advance, but hopefully when I revise your homework, I will make some comments and I will clarify certain things. Anyway, if you think that you need further clarification, just let me know. Okay. So remember that I mentioned that we were going to do this. I mean, to prepare this text, to understand them carefully, in order to do some activities this week. So that is what we are going to do. Basically, we are going to have 2 assignments that are going to be completely based on those 2 texts. Okay. So this will be the assignment number 1. So if you need to stop the video right now, please do it and go to the assignment number 1, and over there you will find an attachment. Okay, this attachment is called Assignment The Oral Portrait. Yes, it's a Word file, and you will find it over there. Okay, so over here you will find, I mean, when you open it, you will find 2 letters, A or B. So those are the like the options that you have to deliver the homework. So everything that is anything, that is best for you, that it's a little bit more easier for you, you can select. Okay, so what is your first option? The first one is to write a 2-paragraph narration minimum. Okay, so you're going to write 2 narrative paragraphs about what? Well, I tell you in a moment. But that will be the first option, like to write this narration that can be a minimum of 2 paragraphs. If you want to write a longer text, that's fine, be my guest. You can do it, okay? But that is the minimum. And that will be the usual. You could do it in a let's say a Word file or something similar, take a picture, that's it. So that will be the first option, okay? Now the second option is a 1-minute uninterrupted audio. Okay, so if it's a little bit easier for you, or if it's something that you would like to do because you speak better than you write, or you're a little bit more fluent, or you simply would like to do something different and maybe, I don't know, add some sound effects or something like that, that might be fun. You know, some people have done it before, and that's cool. Okay. The only condition is that one, that it will be an 1-minute minimum uninterrupted audio. So if you want to make a longer audio, again, be my guest, that's it, you can do it. For this, you have different options. You simply record it and download it and upload it into the homework, or if it's easier for you, you can upload it into your Drive and share with me a link, or even you can upload it into YouTube. No image, only audio, or if you want audio, well, there are a lot of different options, but the idea is that I have a minimum length of 1 minute. Okay, now As usual, you're going to be able to be working in groups of up to 4 people. So, for example, if you decide to work or to to select the option of the audio, so it's not completely necessary that everybody speaks. I mean, it will be a collective work, but if you decide only one person can speak, then again you can divide and everybody can speak, 2 or 3 people, or everybody. That's fine. Yes, so it's up to you. Yes, as long as the production reflects collective work. I mean, it's not something that is done in a hurry and that's it. That I mean, I can sort of verify that you all participated. That will be fine. Okay, so that's it. Decide. You select what is the option that sort of fits best your conditions. Okay. Now, what are you going to write or speak about? Okay, you are going to do it about the oral portrait, of course. Okay, so for that, make sure that you understand the thing completely. Okay, so as usual, what I'm going to do is to place your list over there in the assignment, and I am going to distribute these different, let's say, topics or tasks, right? So again, I'm going to, in front of your name, you will find a number, and that number will correspond to one of these tasks. So let's imagine that you work with 4 people and everyone has a different task. Don't worry, you decide one of them, okay? The one that is best for you, that you feel more comfortable with, or well, whatever, right? So I will explain one by one and see, let's see what would be the task in each case. So the first one says the story of what happened to the main character before the beginning of the narration. Okay, so if you remember properly, there's this guy who arrives sort of wounded. Yes, he's bleeding and he's feverish and all that, and he arrives with his valet, with his servant, and they arrive into this chateau, right? But the author never tells what happened before, right? The story is over, and we never know what happened before. So you're going to imagine that part, okay? You're going to write what happened before. So was he attacked by a ferocious beast, by a supernatural entity? Was he escaping somebody? Was he a criminal? Was he somehow a rich person that was assaulted by thieves and he managed to escape or kill them? I don't know. I gave you, like, I don't know, different options in there. So you're going to write that story, and the story must end exactly where the story of Poe begins. Okay, so that will be the first one. So if you're assigned with that, you're supposed to write in there. Now, an observation for everybody, for all of the assignments. Okay, of course, I am not asking you to imitate Poe to the letter. Well, it's difficult, and that's not the whole point, no? But try to maintain a certain similarity to the discourse of the tale, of the original tale, no? So it has a certain vocabulary, a certain descriptive style, and different things that hopefully you already understood somehow or learned, right? So try to do that. So that for the people who had the number 1. Write a narrative paragraph or send me an audio in which you explain or tell the story of whatever happened before the beginning of the story. Okay? Very well. So that's for the number 1. For the number 2, if you're assigned with the number 2, the story of what happened to the main character after the end of the story. Okay? So at the end of the story, he simply is shocked by the story of this girl on the oval portrait who died somehow after many days of being posing for her husband, and somehow this guy absorbed her beauty and her life and placed it into the portrait, right? but we don't know what happened. Remember that this is a story inside a story, right? So, thanks. As I was saying, we don't know, right? Like probably what he died in the end. He was sort of imagining all this. He was able to escape. He somehow remained living over there in this abandoned castle and made it habitable again. Well, there are a ton of different possibilities in there. So you're going to mention, we're going to describe what happened after this. Okay. That's for the number 2. Now, people of the number 3 are going to write or tell me about the story of why the chateau is abandoned. Okay. Again, this is some missing part of the story. We don't know why the chateau is abandoned. We don't know what happened to the former owners or inhabitants of the castle. So you're going to imagine what happened to them. So again, they all die. They haunt the house in the shape of, or in the form of ghosts. They found something so terrible that they decided to escape. They will return and find the guy over there. We don't know, right? So try to imagine this story about the former inhabitants of the house and of the chateau, and tell me about it. Okay. Now, people assigned with the number 4. Imagine and briefly describe other of the paintings mentioned in the story. Narrate the story, the short story of it, just like in the case of the oval portrait. Okay, so I want to remind you, and if you don't remember this part, probably it's important, especially you guys, that you go to that part of the tale again and read it. So remember that at some point this guy enters into a room and he finds that there are a lot of different paintings. Okay, he just mentions them. As far as I remember, he doesn't describe any of them different than the oval portrait, but he mentions that there are a lot of different paintings. And then later on, he opens the book and he looks for the story of the oval portrait that was the one that caused a big impression on him, and he read it. So we can presume that potentially this big and old book has the stories of all those paintings, right? It has probably this short story of all the other different paintings. So you are going to imagine another painting. I don't know, a painting of a person, a painting of a fire, a painting of an animal, a painting of a woman, a kid. I don't know. Imagine the painting, yes, and imagine the story behind that painting. Yes, and hopefully it's a sort of a dramatic story or something interesting. No, it's not something like. And then there was this guy posing, and then I painted it. The end. Well, try to keep it imaginative. Yes, like this imaginative. This text has a tone that is gloomy, dark, and it's Poe, of course, so has this element of horror somehow. So try to make it that way, right? Now, if you think about that, it should be a little bit more romantic love or something like that. Well, it's up to you, but try to maintain a certain tone that is coherent, right, with the story. That shouldn't be like out of place, okay? Right. Now, the number 5 is pretty interesting assignment as well. So people who have the number 5, you're going to do this. You are going to narrate the story of the person who wrote the book that the protagonist read. So, just as I mentioned before, this guy enters into this room full of paintings. He finds a book. He starts like reading the book, and that's how he's able to get to know the story of the oval portrait, right? So Poe never tell us like who is this guy, who's the author, like was he the painter to all of them that wrote this, and if that is the case, how old was he, because there are a lot of paintings, right? Or there was somebody else. Are these stories real, right? or they just came from the feverish imagination of the writer that just sit down on this room and try to imagine a story for each painting. We never know that, okay? So you are going to do that, yes? You're going to mention who is this person. Is he a normal person? Is he a writer? Is he, the painter that has the talent of writing as well? It is somebody completely different from the painter, and probably he just got in touch with the stories. Let's say that the paintings inspired the book inspired the paintings. We don't know, right? And more importantly, what happened to him, because apparently he's not at home, right? So he wrote this and died. He wrote this and escaped. He wrote this and left it as a warning, maybe to people coming later on, in order to know the perils or the dangers of creativity. I don't know, right? Like, there are a lot of different things that you can do in there. So as you can see, the exercise is short somehow, because it's only 2 minutes, two paragraphs minimum, or 1 minute minimum. But I do know that that requires some preparation. Now, like, you cannot write just a couple of paragraphs just right away. You have to probably reread the story, discuss with your partners, verify all these different things, and the same for the audio, if that is the case. Okay. So hopefully everything that you prepared last week is going to help you to complete this activity much sooner. Okay. Now before we go into the other assignment that will be, I guess, in the next video, take into account that what I'm showing you today in the form of an exercise is already like a technique or an idea in order to start using literature in the classroom, right? As I mentioned before, we had just made preparations, choosing the text, preparing the study guides, everything else. Well, now this is something that we can do in class. And I have given you here an example of 5 different activities that you can do. Yes? Well, in this case, with the story of Poe, but in your case, you can do it with any other story that has like an open ending, an open beginning, and all these different things. 5 different things that you can do. So take that into account for your future activities and for the future things that you are going to do. Okay, so that will be our first lesson for this week with the story of Edgar Allan Poe. So see you in the next video, in which I explain about the second activity that will be based on the last question by Isaac Asimov. Thanks a lot. Hugs.